welcome to our latest installment in the Briefly Focused series. Briefly Focused, communicate effectively and get more done. I'm Ala Policastro, Director of Education and Professional Development, and I'm delighted to introduce this morning's speaker, Tracy Goodwin. Tracy holds a Master's of Arts in Education with a specialization in conflict resolution and has earned 7 professional coaching certifications. She is the co-author of the award-winning book, Navigating ADHD, Your Guide to the Flip Side of ADHD. With over 2 decades of experience as a communications and productivity expert and ADHD coach, Tracy helps clients and law firms enhance productivity through improved organization, time management, stress management, communication, and conflict resolution. We can't wait to hear what she has to share with us today, so I'm going to turn it over to Tracy.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction. Introductions are such a funny thing when you hear someone describing you and what you do. So, hello, everyone out there, whether you are tuning in live or a recording, it is wonderful to meet you. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation today about communication, productivity, and ADHD. Okay, we can move it forward. So, we are bringing you today one of my favorite topics, and it always has been about thinking about the power in communication. Today, specifically, we're going to be thinking about using communication as a tool for helping you get more done, which I know we all want to get more done. Okay. Little bit about me. I've been working in the field of ADHD, specifically working with lawyers and legal professionals for the past 25 years. I first got really passionate about this topic when I was teaching high school, before I got into the world of law at all. And I realized staff to staff, student to student, whether it was ADHD involved or something else going on, communication was the foundation to everything. So that led to my graduate work in communicating, leadership, and conflict resolution. That's also where I began to specialize in ADHD. I then worked with children and families and happened to have quite a few parents coming my way that were lawyers. So that's what introduced me to this field. Specifically, we know now that this wasn't a coincidence, that the average of lawyers facing challenges of ADHD is 4 times as much, and I would suspect even higher than the general population. So it was no coincidence that folks were showing up as parents also feeling stress with ADHD within their own jobs within the legal profession. So from there, went on to creating the Make ADHD Your Genius framework, which is where a lot of the different offerings I have are housed. I do have 7 coaching certifications. They range from ADHD specific all the way to living an alcohol-free lifestyle, mindset coaching. There's quite a few in there. I did co-author an award-winning book for those of you who are parenting children with ADHD. That book was written for parents specifically. Um, what else can I tell you? Love nerding out on anything personal development, neuroscience, absolute favorite, which is always adding and updating the work that I do, whether it's communication, conflict resolution, or specific ADHD coaching. And outside of that, and I will be doing these things this weekend, I love hiking, traveling, being in nature, and boating. So that's a little bit about me and why I'm here talking about this topic. So to start off, we are, and I think you're probably pretty used to this, we are going to use the Q&A feature. If you have questions along the way, I'll be pausing in between topics for you to pop your questions that you have in there. I'd also like to use it for a way for us to interact. So I'm wondering, do these things ever happen to you? And you can put a yes in there if you feel like these things ever happen. You feel like your mind is speeding along, missing important details. Misunderstandings seem to occur frequently. You may be frustrated and exhausted. You wish you could slow everything down, but then at the same time, you have that feeling of like you really wish you could hurry it all up and get it over with. You may find that you make the most mistakes in your work and conversations when it's around the simple things. I want to pause on that one in particular because the ADHD brain, we know, likes stimulation. It likes what is new and novel. It also likes what is challenging. So when something is seemingly simple or mundane, or a conversation is not piquing our interest, that is why mistakes are often made, or an email is sent, or a document is looked at, but we have not been able to follow up or catch the details. That is why that is happening, because the challenge piece is gone. So, if you can relate to any of these things, everything we talk about today, we're going to anchor in to these particular either emotions or actual things that are getting in your way of feeling productive each day. So here's what we are going to be doing. I'm going to be providing you with easy to implement strategies. I do want you to know my approach, whether it's coaching, consulting, or training, there is no fluff to it. It is very straightforward. I want people tuning in to be able to leave after an hour together and be able to implement things immediately. So you will learn how to block out distractions, set clear boundaries. I want you to feel confident delegating tasks. I want you to be able to have some takeaways that are going to improve your listening and your ability to communicate during meetings. I want you to be able to be clear in your communication, and these things will then provide you an increase in productivity, which is a decrease in stress. You can think of it flip as well. A decrease in stress increases productivity. And we are going to talk about it today through the lens of communication. So here's how we're going to do it. We are going to be doing this through the Make ADHD Your Genius framework. I'm going to be pulling out different aspects to be able to share those with you today. And we're also going to be thinking about communication as a tool, the method that I use for lawyers. So you will be able to take these pieces again, go bring them right to the work that you're doing. So here's the plan. Step one, we're going to talk about awareness. Step two, we're going to put our attention on thinking about how do you power up your skill set right now in the moment. Step three, we are going to really take a look at how you can start responding versus reacting. And then we will definitely have time for question and answers. I'll stop a few times in between. So if anyone does have a question, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A and we'll take a look at those. Okay, so step one is awareness. And awareness is about you and your brain, your style of communication. It's also about that of other people. So we really want to be thinking about, we know that we can't change or control how someone is reacting or responding to us, that person on the other side of the table or next to us in the workplace, but we definitely can influence And we can definitely control our own methods that we're using to communicate and action steps we're taking. With the ADHD brain, these things can sometimes feel out of our control, like things are just moving too fast or I just can't rein it in. That is false, that you cannot learn how to do things differently. So I want you going into this time together with thinking step one, let's get really aware of what's going on for you and what you're going to do about it. So, this, I want you to take a moment and think about these particular statements and if you've heard them before. Has anyone ever told you you are too loud or you're just too much? Tone it down. Maybe it's you're too quiet or you're just too wordy. Why can't you pay attention? Or the dreaded again. These statements, if you haven't heard them out loud, you may definitely know that someone is thinking them because of what you're picking up in that back and forth tension that you might be experiencing with others. Okay? I want you to also think about, do you ever say any of these things to yourself? Why can't I just get this done like everyone else? What if they find out I'm not perfect? This is one I hear a lot. Am I supposed to be in charge here? Or not as a question, but a statement. I am supposed to be in charge here and I can't keep it all together. What is wrong with me? I am a terrible fill in the blank. I should have fill in the blank. I miss the simplest things all the time. If you are saying any of these things, or you've heard other people saying them to you, I want you to know that this immediately is draining your productivity. Your brain spending any time on any of these areas is most likely hyper focusing on them, and they are stealing your time. When we're thinking about how others are perceiving our work or our ADHD, that energy drain gets pulled in the wrong direction. We want it pulled in the direction of what are your strengths? What are you going to do to get more done in less time? How are you going to communicate it? And how are you going to experience less stress? So, if any of you out there can relate to any of these statements, which I think most likely we all can, we just want to think of nipping those in the bud when they pop up. We hear a statement, we're not giving over our conscious brain energy to it. We're going to consider it, this is not part of my energy, and we're going to move on to what we can do about it. So let's start thinking about that part. Research shows that your IQ drops 15 plus points when you're stressed, frustrated, nervous, angry, any kind of stress. This is a huge drop in your IQ. I don't have the research in front of me, but being at a conference long ago, the estimate was actually higher. I don't quote it here because I don't have that written study that was done. But I suspect that is the number is even higher. 15 points is significant. It means it explains why when you are feeling extreme emotions, you can't think of what to say. Maybe your brain freezes. Maybe you do the opposite. You say a whole bunch of stuff and then you wish you didn't. Maybe you hit send on the email and you shouldn't have. Maybe you miss half of the errors in some kind of draft or proposal that you are writing. Maybe you say something and it comes out entirely different than what you meant. This can explain part of it. So again, going back to what sort of things kind of start getting you feeling a little on edge, you then in turn begin to get upset and stressed. Then your IQ drops. Now you're not productive at all. And when this happens for someone with ADHD and it's coming at them through how people are communicating to them or how they're engaging with other people, it makes complete sense why you're feeling like you are just going in a million different directions. So it's really important for you to just acknowledge this and for you to think about in a given day, how many times today already have you felt stressed, nervous, frustrated, angry? Because every time you do, and it escalates, or you have a conversation that makes it worse, or you don't have a conversation and you're worried, it starts to eat away at what you're actually getting done. So just start questioning it. Just start paying attention to that alone, and you'll catch yourself. And every time you catch yourself, you will come back to resetting your mind, re engaging through the other strategies we talk about today. So here's something I want you to think about. I know you have thought about your communication style before. I'm quite certain. You know if you are assertive or not assertive. You know if you tend to be quiet or maybe you're loud. Maybe it depends on the situation. But we also all have a natural preference for how we communicate. The difference with ADHD is your brain's going to lock in to your natural preference, most likely more so than a brain without ADHD. You know how this experience feels. You know you can focus. And when you do focus intensely, it's like no other kind of focus. Start thinking about how you communicate the same way. You want to leverage the things that come easy to you, and we can think about how to work on the other aspects of communication, but really important for us to think about this. So we have these different types of preferences that you might experience. There are people who communicate visually. So that means they're getting feedback from what they see around them, what is happening with engagement from person to person. They're taking it all in visually. There's some people who are kinesthetic. If someone has a kinesthetic communication style, they need to be doing something in order to access their best communication. So this could be you need to be standing up when you're having a conversation. Well, make sure you're standing up and pacing if you're on a phone call. Let's make sure if you are in a meeting that you are utilizing this particular style. Maybe when you're leading a meeting, you're standing rather than sitting. Okay. Intuitive means that you're just able to pick up on the sense, the energy of what is happening in front of you on the other side of the phone, in a meeting with a colleague. You are intuitively sensing what's happening and you're using that to your benefit when you're communicating. Maybe you're an excellent nonverbal communicator. So people know you're engaged because you're nodding. Okay. Maybe you are making great eye contact. Maybe your body language is always welcoming or looks like you are in tune with what's happening. Written communication, you do better when you're writing things down, when your messaging is in a written format. You might be an excellent creator of emails or newsletters or providing updates for people that are written versus verbal. And you might be auditory. So, auditory, obviously, you learn best and communicate best when you're able to listen clearly, and this could look different from all of you. Some of you that might mean you need no distractions, background noise. Other people, you need the background noise while you're communicating. So on the next slide, we're going to think about this a little bit more. We could do a whole training just on these, actually. I want to just give you some examples of what I'm talking about with ADHD style. So if you are visual, there's a visual preference for you when communicating. You want to be sitting where you have the best view, let's say, of someone leading a meeting. Let's say you are communicating on the phone. If you have a window and you visual seeing things helps your brain focus. Other people, it's going to be massive distraction. But for you, if that ties into your communication strength area, you're going to want to think about creative ways to make that happen as much as possible. Kinesthetic, taking notes can be really helpful for a person who needs to be moving their body. It can be having a fidget in your hand. And, non-clicking pen counts as a fidget. You could have even having a notebook in your hand, something you're grasping, that counts. Having a cup of coffee or your hand touching a bracelet when you're communicating is going to be helpful. Auditory, asking for meeting notes, anything that's coming at you written, having an app turn it into audio so you can listen. That's going to be better for you. Written, which we talked about before, taking notes. A lot of people feel like, well, I don't know if it's okay to be taking notes while I'm just having a conversation with someone. It absolutely is okay. It shows that person you care enough that you are taking notes on what they are saying to you. Really important, regardless of the topic of the conversation. Nonverbal. You want to think about when you are communicating and you are picking up on what is happening for the other person, that's helping your brain stay engaged. So you can use all of these preferences to help your brain actually block out distractions, because the ADHD brain, when it's anchored in a strength area or it's doing something purposefully, this is not multitasking. When it's doing something purposefully, at the same time, it is trying to listen or do something else, that's going to help you be able to leverage your communication style better. Okay. So let's think about this whole like you're using communication as a tool. So you can have effective communication and use it as a tool, which then helps with delegation, right? If we're communicating effectively and we're clear and we're leveraging our preference and we're not putting brain energy into worry and anger and all the other things, delegation happens with more ease. It then allows us to sustain focus in meetings, which means we get more done in less time. We hit deadlines. You can see how these things all connect. And when you start using communication as a tool versus, I don't know, I just go to work and I do things. Things come across my desk. People talk to me, tell me, here's what I need you to take a look at. Start thinking about it as a tool, how you respond, and it's going to make a difference in how productive you are and then how you feel. Okay, this is one of my favorite pieces to think about when we are talking about communicating powerfully. Okay, and we're moving into our step 2 part of things, which is really about helping you be as powerful as you can in your communication. Okay, let's take a look at what we have here. One of my favorite communication strategies is to replace the word and for but. Okay, this might be something you're already doing. If you're not, when you think about it, if you are delegating a task and you say, oh, you know, great job on the newsletter that you did last time, but, and you list out all the things that were wrong, you automatically ensure that that person is going to be less productive because now they're on the negative side of what was communicated. If you simply say, oh, great job on that newsletter, and this time around, I'd like you to dot, dot, dot. This is dramatically different in how the person on the receiving end takes in what you are saying. And if you think of this as you quantify it, let's say you are a lawyer and you're communicating with your paralegal and you're always including a but in the statement. That person, you are not empowering that person, you're doing the opposite. And this one word change can dramatically change things. When you're communicating verbally, or it could be in an email or some kind of document, I am confident. And then what you're going to say is so much more powerful than saying, I think dot, dot, dot. Okay, totally different. You can even see me sitting here saying it out loud. I am confident this is going to be very helpful for you today versus I think this will be helpful for you today. No, it's very different. The person on the other end is taking the information in differently, and you are going to feel better when you're saying, I am confident. So the connection, it boosts productivity automatically because you're entering into it with a way better energy level. I appreciate your help rather than sorry to bother you. This particular one comes up a lot for me especially when I'm working with new lawyers who are feeling like they have so many questions and they're feeling like they're bothering or constantly interrupting someone else. This then, when they're attaching sorry, is just making them feel weaker and weaker, really, versus stronger and stronger, which is what we want new attorneys to be feeling and growing and learning. It ties into the second one of these clarifications are so helpful. Thank you. Rather than, sorry, I'm always asking questions. Okay, completely different. So, new attorneys out there, think about which of these you can use and think about not only is it more powerful for you, it lands completely different for the other person, which therefore makes your conversation more productive and decreases levels of stress. Um, be transparent. This one can be really difficult for people to bring into their everyday life. Okay. You can say, I need a moment to consider that. If you are someone who is impulsive in your communication and you're always saying the next thing and then you're kind of wishing that you didn't, you can use this as a standard question or a statement, would be the better way to say that. A statement that allows your brain and gives your brain pause time. So you could just add it on to something. You are headed into an important meeting. You know that your emotions are amped up a little bit. You may just decide, well, no matter what is said, I'm going to say, I need a moment to consider that and give your second a beat, give your mind a minute to process what was just being said. This is only a reflection, again, that you care, that you're professional, that you want to get things right versus an impulsive statement because you feel like you need to, or because your brain is impulsive and it just comes out. So there's 5 more we're going to look at. Insert silences when needed. Silences, I love silences. I always have. I kind of think of them as a game. And I do a lot of group facilitation when there's conflict involved. Silences are fabulous because they give people a chance to process and to think. And someone always talks. Okay. I've done hundreds and hundreds of group facilitation, and I've never had a time where there was an awkward silence and somebody didn't begin to speak at some point in time. There's an average, I think it's 45 seconds is usually, and it can feel like hours for the person that's leading the meeting. But it's really important to give space for this. And if your ADHD brain likes to run fast, this can be difficult. So practice, practice. Ask open-ended questions. This is such a great tool for strengthening executive functioning skills. It is a great tool because it forces the brain to pause. Okay, so if it's ADHD for you, it's ADHD for a person you're talking with or a colleague that you're working with. Open-ended questions for yourself slow your brain down, and for the person you're talking with, it also forces their brain to pause. So they're wonderful for that reason. Start taking out the word just whenever you see it in your communication. This is not a powerful word. It is one that drains and is the opposite of powerful. So play around with it. If you're someone who uses that word, you will now see it popping up constantly in emails or in conversation. So this one can be a fun one and an easy one to just start and see, I just said it, to just start taking it out. When I say just start doing it, the negative impact of using the word that way is it takes away from the conversation. It moves it down a notch of seriousness. Sometimes it can bring an air of simplicity when something isn't. And it also can take away, just wondering sounds like you don't really care what the person is going to tell you back or when they're going to tell you. It gives off a little bit of a feeling of nervousness. So take a look at this one and see where you see it popping out. When giving directives, don't make it a question by saying okay at the end. This might be the type of thing you do less at work and more at home. If you have young children, this one might come into play where it's bedtime and you say time for bed, okay? No, if your child has ADHD, when you put that question mark on it, that just lights up the brain for a debate because that means there's choice involved. So if you're delegating tasks, you want to delegate a task. You can certainly say, are there any questions with this? But when you make it optional that the directive has to actually happen or the delegation needs to happen, for the other person, you kind of give your power away. It can make a productivity tank. Lastly, for our top 10, and these are my top 10 favorites that I feel are most effective, is thinking about less is more. Okay, a lot of times with ADHD, we want to be giving a whole bunch of information, or we might be talking really fast. It might be rapid fire, or we might have a document we write with a lot of extra language. We want to always be thinking about who am I communicating with, and less might be in many situations much better. So another aspect of this finding your power piece, we could do a whole training on any of these pieces I'm giving you today. So my goal is to provide you with some of my favorites so that you can be, like I said, off and running with how you are using communication as a tool. So the things I have listed on here, the relationship to communicating is if you use these particular ways of blocking out distractions, you show up to communicate at a much more focused state of mind than you do otherwise. So, box breathing is a wonderful technique. It is a technique that helps get oxygen to the brain, it gets blood flowing, and it also settles your nervous system in the process. So I'm going to take a moment and actually run through this with you if you haven't done box breathing before. We'll just do one round of it. But you can, if you're sitting at your desk or wherever you are, you can close your eyes for a moment. This will only take a minute. Have your hands on your lap, be sitting up tall. This will also help you if you're zoning out while watching this. It will help reset your brain. And I just want you to follow my lead. So you're going to be breathing in for a count of 4. You're going to hold it for 4. You're going to let it out for 4. You're going to pause for 4. We're going to go ahead and do one more. Breathe in for 4. Hold it for 4. You're going to let it out for 4. And you're going to pause for 4. This is a technique that I have shared with so many people, be it leaders of a company before they go into a meeting where there are high profile things happening, from people talking on stages to someone just feeling a little stressed out while sitting at their desk. You can do this in under 5 minutes, like we just did. You can do it in under a minute and help your brain reset. Research shows 17 seconds of a breathing practice can help reset the brain. So, what I love about this is you can use this whenever you want while you're walking down the hallway to a meeting to get yourself ready. There is no way you can talk yourself out of this one because the tool is within you and you have a choice whether you use it or not. Hydration is a similar one. Oftentimes with ADHD, you may be ignoring your awareness around thirst, how much you're drinking during the day. People actually have thresholds with this of how long it takes for you to become aware that, oh, I didn't drink water all day. Hydration for my clients is one of the number one changes they make that helps with focus and productivity and therefore enhances how they're communicating. So hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. If you're someone who forgets, you need to have an alarm, not a reminder popping up on your phone, but some sort of alarm that reminds you it's time to drink. Um, Running your wrists under cold water is an excellent way to reset the brain and help you block out distractions when you come back and sit down or re-engage. This is another one that is so incredibly easy to do. It could be you're amped up for a case or you are going into court and you're feeling not so calm or you need to settle down. This is an easy one. Posture, again, you can do it whenever you want. The goal is, especially if you're someone who you are at your computer a lot during the day, when you're sitting up straight and your spine is straight, you have better oxygen flow going to the brain. When you have better oxygen flow, you're able to block out distractions a bit more than when without. You are also able to communicate more effectively. The reason why these things also work goes back to that idea that the ADHD brain often needs to be doing more than one thing at the same time when it's a mundane task. This is not multitasking. This is purposefully sipping water while you're trying to be engaged in a meeting. It is before you go to communicate something important, you're breathing to regulate, and therefore you're blocking out some of the distractions. So play around with these ones. These are my favorite because you can walk away from this webinar and go try out some of these things, and your brain will be in a better place to communicate. I love these. They're so simple. So, step 3, I want you to really understand that knowing your intention and the reality of the impact is really important. So, I want you to get curious and think about when you're communicating, whether it's verbally or whether it's through a written form or email or text. Get curious about whether or not you're having the impact you desire, because we usually don't check and make sure that we are. We kind of think to ourselves, like, that was great, or that wasn't, or maybe we think it was great, but we don't actually know. We need to get curious. Are we having the impact we desire? So let's take a look at this one a little bit more. So you'll notice in this diagram that our intention starts things off. So this is why it's also really important for you to have an intention when you are communicating. If you are racing from one thing to another and you're not even like sure, why am I talking to this person, or what is happening here, or I hope this goes well, and you don't have a specific intention, that gets this muddied from the start. So have a clear intention. Know what you're trying to do. Are you trying to show up to listen? Be present? Are you communicating something to other people? Get really clear, because that's where it starts. The person takes in what you're communicating, the mind starts going, it gives meaning to it. Okay. And that part has nothing to do with you. And then it ends here and the impact takes shape. So you could think of this for yourself while you're listening to this. So my intention is I want you to be able to walk away and put something to use right away. Feel more productive. You're taking in what I communicate, your mind's thinking about it, and it decides on the meaning. It decides, tried that, didn't work for me, and your brain starts tuning out. Or, oh, that's interesting. I haven't tried that before. I'm going to try that. Or, oh, interesting. I have tried that and I'm feeling like I might want to try it again. So I don't know what that impact is unless you tell me. I can guess based on doing these presentations for a long time what the impact will be, but we need to get really clear and make sure as often as we can as, how is that meeting for you? How was that conversation? How did that land, what we just talked about? You can ask those questions without judgment, without a look of worry or fear on your face. You can start asking more questions. That's how you get curious about your impact. Okay. Impact and intention. There's this other little piece to it. And it's not little because, again, we could keep talking about this. But I want you to think about, are you responding or reacting to things when you're communicating? Reacting is draining and lowers cognitive ability. You could also say when you're stressed or upset, your cognitive ability has already started to decline. So that means you're going to be reacting more. Communication that is clear and responsive, it gets things done. And you buy back your energy and you feel better. So stop right now and think to yourself prior to showing up here today. How much of your morning or wherever you are at in your day has been spent reacting? Reacting is not going to help with productivity. So I just want you to think about it. Maybe you're great at responding and you've been in a responsive place so far today. Just take note of where you're at, and then we'll take a look at the next slide. If you're feeling like you are reacting more than responding, there could be some different things going on. Reactions are often emotional, they can be impulsive, and they might be coming from fear. The reason why we're looking at this in relationship to ADHD is because ADHD can feel really intense. So your emotions might feel really intense. Your impulsive actions might be really intense. If you're afraid of certain things, that's going to be possibly really intense for you. And therefore, it takes away from how you're communicating and showing up. So I just want you to think about when you have to have either a challenging conversation, or perhaps you're going into a meeting, or you're sharing a new idea that you have. Are you ever afraid that people aren't really going to like me if I say this, or no one's going to take me seriously? I might be afraid that I'm going to make a mistake, especially if I'm a perfectionist. You might be a little fearful of, I might make everything worse if I put this out there. You might be fearful that you just might never be heard, and then what's going to happen? And you might also feel like if you slow down and listen to what's going on, you might lose complete control over what is at the top of your mind. That's why often with ADHD and communicating, your brain may be 5 steps ahead in the conversation. It may also be trying to prepare what you're going to say next, and then you don't even know what just took place around you. So we're going to think of what to do about these things next. So before we take a look at these ones, I just want to revisit for a moment a strategy that you can use if you are someone where you do get lost in conversations because your mind is preparing what you're going to say next. This can be a great time to be taking notes, okay? That might not be realistic. You might be in the hallway at work and you're just having a quick back and forth conversation. If that's where you experience it the most, you want to do what you can to focus something visually, if possible, on that person. Like, I'm going to focus on this necklace that they have on, or I'm going to keep in mind something about the environment. It could be for some people, their brain, in order to stay focused, they're just going to pick something like, oh, that sound I hear in the background is actually quite calming for me. I'm going to have part of my brain tune into that. This part can be really confusing, and working with a coach or someone that specializes in communication can be helpful with this to help you design your own strategies. So I just want you to start kind of playing around with some of these ideas. So if again, you're reacting or you have some of those fears popping up, you're going to want to really think about knowing your audience. So who are you going to be talking to? Who are you talking to? If it's someone that you tend to have conversations with and you're always in that, like you're missing part of the conversation piece, just kind of know that. Take note. Is it because they talk really fast? Is it because it's too slow? What's going on? Know your audience. Get clear on what gets you upset in client interactions, in colleague interactions. What sort of things do people say or do that you just get that feeling like, oh, I'm not liking this? And just plan for it so that rather than your brain go into reaction mode, it can go into respond mode. Know exactly what you're going to say. So whenever possible, If it's a conversation that you are initiating, think about it before you go into the conversation if it's an important one. What's your intention? I'm going to be present. I'm going to ask open-ended questions. I'm going to do what I can to leverage my natural preference for how I communicate. Reality test what might come up in a conversation and how you're going to handle it. You might have an idea in your head of how a conversation is going to go and what you're going to say, and it sounds perfect and wonderful. You want a reality test for yourself. Is that actually possible? And is it an expectation you really want to have? So just reality test it. Think about, well, perfection isn't possible, so I should probably plan for that. I do tend to sometimes tune out during a conversation, so I should probably have a plan for that. Maybe if I'm wearing a bracelet, I'm going to hold it while we're talking. This is what I'm talking about with the planning. Create scripts. Scripts are the best communication tool. If you're not great in back and forth conversations, write down a couple of things like one-liners that you can always say. Asking for clarification. Make that just something that you do, something that you say. And recognize your communication style. On the next slide, we're going to see a couple of other things that we're going to think about, which deal with having personal rules to slow yourself down when you're communicating. So what do I mean by this? I mean, just like there are rules that we all follow or people are supposed to be following in the world. You need to have personal rules for yourself if you're someone that you just can't keep up with your own thoughts during conversations. You might start practicing counting to 5 in your head before you respond. You might always, regardless of how the conversation is going or how you're experiencing it, just tell yourself, I'm always asking an additional open-ended question because I know it's going to engage my brain and theirs, and I'm going to get more out of the conversation. I already said this, but I'm going to say it again. Allow for silence. That might become one of your new personal rules. Notice when you feel uncomfortable and take it as a sign that that means you need to slow down and respond. Why am I saying this? Because you need to get really clear on what feelings of uncomfort, discomfort to feel like in your body. When you're in a conversation and you feel like, oh, I missed part of what they said, what starts happening? Does your heart beat fast? Do you get hot? What happens for you? Pay attention to those cues because when you do, you will know, okay, that's where I need to insert the strategy. That's going to help me communicate more effectively. Okay, as we're winding down a bit, just want to give you a few examples of how changing your communication techniques can help you be more productive. So Sue was an attorney that I was working with who she was having a difficult time communicating with her paralegal. And the reason really is because she was misunderstanding the paralegal's needs. Sue thought, okay, I'm going to give her a certain amount of work. I'm not going to do too much because I feel really bad, like I might be overwhelming them. So I'm just going to give like bits and pieces of things as we go, thinking that this was great. The paralegal on the other side was thinking the direct opposite. She was thinking, Sue doesn't think I'm capable of doing this work. She uses the word but a lot. I think she thinks that I just can't handle it. So she's actually not giving me the amount of work that I can handle. Or when she does give it to me, it's a bit disjointed. So it took a conversation for Sue and her paralegal to think about what was happening for the other person, where they were just missing. It was just complete miscommunication. Once the paralegal understood that Sue thought she was more than capable, Sue just didn't want her to be completely overwhelmed. That changed everything right there. And when Sue then realized, oh, I should just keep giving the work in this particular system that we are now creating. And that is going to help with productivity. And it did. Similar situation with Joe. Joe was a new attorney feeling like I'm asking way too many questions. I'm just going to do this myself. When that happened, Joe ended up, having missed deadlines or mistakes in work. And the supervising attorney wasn't aware of what was going on for Joe because that person never asked open-ended questions about what Joe's experience was thus far. So again, miscommunication. And in both of these examples, these are not big, lengthy conversations. They're short tweaks of how we communicate. Lisa was someone I worked with who was getting emails from an attorney nonstop all day, rapid fire, rather than getting one either more lengthy email or maybe two would have even been beneficial, but didn't know how to tell this other person who was a superior that she wasn't able to respond or be productive this way. And it was actually draining her time and energy. The person sending the emails, they thought this was helpful. I'll have the thought, I'll send it right out. You'll be able to address it. A conversation about what was happening for each person on either end happened, and then they were able to figure out a system that worked for them both. So the reason why I'm sharing these examples is because ADHD was involved in each one of them, and a person without ADHD was involved in each one of them. And it took a conversation and an understanding of each person on how each was going to have their needs met, work collaboratively and productively. And when that happened, it's not surprising that productivity went up and stress levels went down. So use these examples to kind of think about for yourself, where are some changes we may want to be making in your firm or just you yourself want to make. Okay. Putting it all together is basically what I just said. When you layer these strategies that we've talked about today, you are able to begin to put them together so you can leverage your skills. You can be purposeful, you're able to respond, and all of that together just makes people feel better. You have more energy, you have more time. It's like you're buying it back, and you feel more confident. And when you are feeling that way, it's a ripple effect. Everyone around you benefits. Regardless of your role of where you're working, you do have a ripple effect of people around you. And that can only increase, empower, help people, or it can have the opposite effect of where it can be draining. And we want to always be operating on this. How do I make a small change so I feel better, more work gets done, and I'm having a ripple effect that is important and impactful because you're having one. So, as we end today, I would love for you to take a moment and write down 1 to 3 things you are going to go try out. Right now, immediately when you get off this call, what are 1 to 3 things you can go try out? Each time I do this, people are able to go try something out immediately. So, I'd like for you to write that down, put it in the notes on your phone or on a piece of paper, put it somewhere. And if you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear from you. My email address, Tracy with an E, at tracybromleygoodwin.com. You can also text or leave me a voice message at 508-566-0093. And I really, truly mean that. Any questions about anything we talked about today, questions about any of the work or aspects of the frameworks we used today, please reach out. I'd be happy to get back to you. Thank you so much for having me today.
This
And
concludes today's presentation. Thank you so much, Tracy, for your time, and thank you so much to our audience watching. Once again, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to Tracy at her email provided. Have a great day, everybody.